Apriamo così la conferenza di CACEIS dal titolo L'evoluzione dei risparmi.
With the CACEIS conference, we will be talking about the evolution of managed assets and the evolution of digital assets. My name is Giorgio Solcia, Country Manager, CACEIS Italy. My task this afternoon is to introduce our very welcome guests. Let me start right away with Arnaud Misset, our key speaker from Paris, our Chief Digital Officer. Now, Arnaud will go through digital assets, the digital assets universe, and he will also be talking about the services that CACEIS is able to offer the market, and not just in the rest of Europe, but also and especially Italy, if investors want to take into account new asset classes. He will be followed by our moderator. Now, the moderator will introduce the panel. So our, again, panelist, Pierangelo Soldavini, I will give the floor to him later from Sole 24 Ore. I also would like to thank all of you, ladies and gentlemen, for your participation. Enjoy the conference. Arnaud.
Well, thank you, Giorgio. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm delighted to be with you today, and I really do apologize for not being able to speak in Italian. And I will try my best to do it in English, as I'm French. So we will spend the first 25 minutes together before I leave the floor to the really interesting guy in front of me that will bring you a lot more than I will do. But let's be sure we're on the same page. So if we go directly in the topics we're here for today, we will go through I do face a small issue, supposed to be on screen, but it's not working. Yes. So we will get back to be sure once again we're on the same page. We'll pay attention to the basics when we talk about digital decentralized ledger technology and blockchain tokens and so on and so forth. Then it's quite important that we pay attention to the regulatory context because, as you probably know, the MiCA regulation will come into force by the end of the year and will harmonize from a European perspective all the regulation around digital assets. Then having a look at the competition, not to make the suspense last any longer, maybe we're all thinking that digital asset custody, digital assets is something brand new, state of the art. I'm sorry to say that, but it's not anymore. A lot of people are in that field already, providing services. It's just about to become mainstream. Finally, I will explain you a little bit about the CACEIS offer itself and give you a little insight of what happened during the past months, notably get back on the beautiful launch of the ETF by BlackRock that raised such a big fund in a small period of time. So in really simple words, when we talk about blockchain, you have to see it as a decentralized ledger technology. If we compare it to the financial sector, let's say that it's more or less market infrastructure. And when we talk about tokens, digital financial instruments, even cryptocurrency, these are the assets circulated on this blockchain that is representing what you own. So market infrastructure on the one hand, the blockchain itself, tokens, crypto, and so on and so forth, the assets circulated on the blockchain. We need to understand a few definitions to be sure that we all have it in mind. So to be able to hold some cryptocurrencies, some tokenized financial instruments, some NFTs, and all the digital asset family, you will need a wallet. The wallet, let's consider it more or less, if we do a comparison, to your bank account. And to be able to send, to wire crypto, digital asset, or to receive crypto or digital asset, you will need a public address, which more or less, if we want to compare once again, is the equivalent to your IBAN or your bank account. And the way to access your IBAN and your bank account, probably the most important thing, at least from a custodian perspective, is clearly the private keys. The private keys will allow you to access your wallet and the assets that are on these wallets. So just to mention it, if you lose those private keys, you will lose everything. And we'll get back on this. The consensus is also something really important. Remember, we've just talked about the market infrastructure, the decentralized ledger technology, the blockchain. To make the blockchain work, if we want to wire something between you and me, someone will have to say that, yes, I had the asset on my wallet and I can transfer it on your wallet. And the consensus processes is all the miners will agree on that transaction and will validate it. This is what we call the consensus. You probably heard a lot about proof of work, proof of stake, and all the things that were discussed about is blockchain sustainable due to the consumption of energy. Let's forget about this. Most of the consensus process now are on proof of stake, which is not consuming any additional energy. So it's, let's say, a debate from the past. And finally, the smart contract, that is also really important. Programmable finance. In the world we're living in today, when we talk about finance, you will have to deal and tokenize financial instruments. You will have to deal with corporate action and all the things that can happen in the life cycle of a security, and this can be directly programmed into an IT protocol called a smart contract. And the smart contract will be embedded into the blockchain, which will make it benefit from all the good things of the blockchain. The first one is immutability. So if we all agree on those big concepts, let's move a little bit further. Deep dive a little bit more into complexity. Probably you know that there are some public blockchain and some private blockchain. This is something that always comes on the table as well. From my own perspective, the real blockchains, but it's only my view, are public ones. Private blockchains, it's another story. It's a reuse of the technology. It can be interesting, but much more interested in public blockchain. So you have to remember that both of public and private blockchain works on a 24/7, 365 days a year. So it never stops compared to traditional market infrastructure when there is a start of day, end of day, batch processes during the night. Not in that case. It will work full time. And once again, you will find those concepts of wallet, private public address, and private keys. Something really important, and maybe you're all aware about this, but I thought it was important to remind it to you. When we talk about digital asset, it's not Bitcoin only, because too often we hear that digital asset is equivalent to Bitcoin. This is absolutely not the case. Here we try to summarize the whole big family, from the utility tokens to security tokens, going through cryptocurrencies, of course, they're part of it, stablecoin, non-fungible token, and future central bank digital currencies. The big difference is that some of them, you know the issuer, it's, let's say, tokenized financial instruments, like the securities tokens, for instance. The other ones, like cryptocurrencies, you don't know who the issuer is because it's the protocol itself, like Bitcoin, like Ether, like Tezos, and all those crypto that you probably know. And having said that, you can directly see that on the one hand, you have the securities token, tokenized financial instrument. You have cryptocurrencies. And we're all saying that securities token will benefit from all the beauty of blockchain, instant settlement, security, transparency, and all that kind of things. But if we think like this, there's still a missing part. And the missing part is the cash leg. If we compare to the traditional finance, we have something that works pretty well, which is called the delivery versus payment. And at the moment, it's pretty clear, and it's already live in production in many banks. You have the securities leg, tokenized financial instrument, but you have no cash legs, which is quite a hurdle, because if you have to manage the cash in the traditional way and the securities in a tokenized way, you don't get all the benefits. And this is where comes into force the stable coins. But the stable coins are competing with the future central bank digital currency. It's not a technical issue. We can absolutely manage both securities and cash legs. It exists. You have tokenized financial instruments, stable coin, or future central bank digital currency. It's just up to us to make it happen. And at the moment, it's not working well yet. But just keep in mind that we have a wide family, not only limited to cryptocurrency. Now, if we get in a little bit more into the benefit of the technology itself. So costs, of course there will be some benefits about costs. But sorry to say that, probably not in the early beginning, because everything has to be at scale, everything has to be set up. It's costly to set up a new way of working and so on and so forth. So the benefits in terms of cost will come, but not at T0. When we talk about safety, it's probably the one point the most important. So far, blockchain is probably the safest protocol when we talk about IT. It's never been hacked. It works really well, so we can rely on the security and the safety of the process. Rapidity. You've probably seen that in the US, they are moving to T+1. The best protocol to move from T+1 to T0 instant settlement is once again blockchain. It's natively instant settlement. Accessibility. We were discussing just before this meeting about all the beautiful platforms that we can benefit from and available on the market. True, but you have so many and you have to connect to those platforms. When we talk about blockchain, you do have your internet access. You can directly access the blockchain and directly start to use it as a financial exchange, as a financial platform. Transparency, once again, it's another really important point. We're all working in the financial space. We know what it costs to manage reconciliation, to manage the transfer of information, and so on and so forth. If we all rely on the blockchain, we all have the same information at the same time, no reconciliation anymore, full transparency. Cash liquidity, we've been talking a lot about the private markets and all that kind of things. How can we bring liquidity to those markets? Tokenization could be a solution by fractioning the assets or bringing new way to exchange the asset more easily for all the good reasons we mentioned previously. I won't go too much into the others, but keep in mind just only three: security, transparency, rapidity. Regulatory context. This one at the moment and so far was not the most easy one, because there was almost as many regulation as country in Europe. So, well, okay, you will say I'm French and you're right. So that's probably the reason why I mentioned AMF, the French regulator. And I really do believe it was the most advanced one prior to MiCA. We were the first one to promote what we call the 𝘗AN, Digital Asset Service Provider status, that was covering only utility token, cryptocurrencies, stablecoin, and non-fungible token. The securities token was already covered by the traditional agreement a bank is having and already covered by the traditional law like MiFID and others. I will just say a few words about the pilot regime and what has been managed before MiCA to try to make the market take off. Pilot regime, at least it's only my view, is so far not working so well, because in the end we were not really needing the pilot regime. But keep in mind that until MiCA, we had many regulations in many European countries covering everything apart securities token that were already covered as financial instrument by the traditional regulation. So having the kind of same speech, but from a different view, for instance, and to make it more understandable, you had the VASP status in Spain, Virtual Asset Service Provider, another one in Luxembourg, the 𝘗AN one in France. Forget about this. By the end of 2024, you will only have one status covered by MiCA. And keep in mind that just as CACEIS, we are 𝘗AN compliance under the French law. We will have to move from the French compliance to the European one, and we'll have to go from 𝘗AN to MiCA, as every other provider that is for the moment registered or agreed under a specific law. Competition. Why? You probably heard about blockchain, tokens, crypto for a long time. And every time you've been hearing the same kind of pitch, you have to go, the momentum is right now, for sure. But I'm really convinced that it's right now the good moment. The reason why is that we clearly see that the market is booming, not only when we talk about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, But we've seen many new experimentation about tokenized bonds, and it works quite well, about tokenization of fund shares and so on and so forth. I would like to have a different view, not only focusing on Europe, but much more wider. And if we are having a look to what happened on the Asian market, for instance, we clearly see that if we talk about Singapore, for instance, the Monetary Authority of Singapore has done and achieved a lot, because compared to what we can see in Europe, it's the monetary authority itself that brought the infrastructure on the market. This is what we call the project, don't remember, it's a Singaporean project, and they brought the market infrastructure for all the players there. And it changed really the way it works, because you only have to connect to this market infrastructure. No struggles, no war anymore between the different providers. And it's really a big game changer, and the name of the project is Guardian, sorry. We can see as well that tokenized bond issuance is becoming mainstream. All the big investment banks had their experimentation, and they proved it works, and it works well. Once again, from my perspective, it's time to move from MVP experimentation to real market. We know that it works. And regulation, just to give you figures about France, we see that there is a real interest on the market. Only in France, you have 82 players registered as digital asset service providers. It really shows that the offer is there, the interest is there, and it's becoming more and more mainstream. If we get into the organization we've seen on the market so far, there's a big difference between the European players and the US one. If we're having a look to the big US players, we can clearly see that they're on this market for a long time. They've been creating dedicated structure, being joint venture, being separate companies, or we also see internal business line created. We can find the two different models on the market. The US player, they're here for long. They offer a wide range of services, and there's no discussion anymore about the way an asset servicer, a bank, should position itself in this market. The answer is clearly yes. On the European market, the players are there as well. We are one of them, CACEIS. Many others are also offering services. So I would like you to get rid of the idea that this is something really new, that it has to be once again tested and all that kind of thing. No, it's there and it's going to stay. And we don't have to, European players don't have to be ashamed compared to the US one. I think we are getting more and more on the same page, so it's on the right path. Just to say a few words about the CACEIS offer. You know, I'm a CACEIS guy, so it's obviously something I have to let you know about. We are, as you know, an asset servicer. Our two main pillars are custody and fund administration. And of course, we want to keep playing the role of a one-stop shop for our clients. So if we want to be the one-stop shop of our clients, we have to be able to serve them whatever the underlying asset class. It means that we have to cover both traditional assets and digital assets. And this is exactly what we are doing at the moment. We do have a live offer about custody once again of the whole big family, from crypto to future CBDCs. And in the room you have Laurent MAJCHRZAK, who's heading the recently created business line at CACEIS level, which really shows our commitment to that new market. The second one is the tokenization, because once again, crypto are one thing, tokenized financial instrument another one. And we have to be able to accompany our clients towards tokenization, and this is exactly what we're doing. And that's the reason why we do consider tokenized financial instruments, crypto, as a new asset class that has to be managed from end to end. It's not only custody, it's not only distribution, it's both. And the third one is that we also have to facilitate for our clients the access to this asset class and the way to manage it. So you have in front of you the value chain that CACEIS is currently covering. We used to say that we do execution to custody. And if we do focus on the red part, the one that we are really involved in when we talk about digital asset, you can clearly see that it's custody, digital asset, financial instrument, fund administration, because if you are an asset manager and you buy some digital asset, you will need to get the value of it in your NAV. The tokenization as well, and for our big business of private equity, this is something of a high importance as well. Tokenization of funds, fractioning the funds to bring liquidity and to access new markets. What can be tokenized? Almost everything when we talk about financial instruments, and this is the way we see the market is taking. Of course, it's not going to be a shift from one day to another, that's for sure. But the trend is there, and we are convinced that it's not going to stop. We've talked about tokenization of bonds, as we are deeply involved into the asset management market. We also wanted to let you know that we do believe that there will be a period of time before we move directly to full tokenized fund share, where we will be in a hybrid world, managing both traditional fund shares and tokenized one. This is what we're working on at the moment. So we are in a position to tokenize fund share to help all the value chain, because tokenized is only one part. You will still have to manage some kind of TA activity, some kind of taxes management, and all that kind of things. We are able to help you with all that process and to let you learn by doing, in some words. You can still keep traditional forms of fund share, creating a dedicated class, tokenized one, and we will be able to accompany you on that journey as well. And finally, a few insights. What we see so far from the client demands, I think that we've all been amazed by the huge success faced by the ETF launched by BlackRock, the one from Fidelity. So much money raised in such a small period of time, billions. What we see, we've been talking a lot about this over the past year, but it's becoming a reality, the famous Web3 funds. And it changed a lot, because the Web3 funds, when the asset manager wants to invest into one of those companies, he will get utility tokens. And to buy those utility tokens, he will have to pay using crypto or using stable coins. So it's a real new mindset that is being put on the market. And it's a clear demand, at least from our side. And the tokenization of private equity funds. And just to finish with one word, once again, if we want to move to T0, probably the best infrastructure is blockchain. So I will end up there, and I leave you with the good guys. Thank you very much.
Grazie Arnaud Misset.
Thank you so much, Arnaud Misset. He really provided us with a very good overview. He's been really good in simplifying and kind of make the topic quite easy to understand, more approachable, as it is very complex and not so easy to understand. So thank you so much, Arnaud Misset. Thank you, CACEIS, for giving me this opportunity to organize and moderate this event. I'd love to call the participant, the panelists, starting from Andrea Conso, lawyer, expert in financial market regulation, founding partner of a Annunziata firm. You may. Moving next to Andrea Riva, responsible for area capital market open innovation from Crédit Agricole Italia. Antonio Di Feo, Chief Transformation Officer from Crédit Agricole Indosuez Wealth Europe Italy branch. You may also take your seat there. Lorenzo Rigatti, CEO, eco-founder from Block Invest. And last but not least, Laurent MAJCHRZAK, Group Head of Digital Assets at CACEIS Bank. Okay, I don't want to take too much of your time, so the title is about evolution of managed assets. And so how do we approach this now? So we've heard there has been not just an evolution, this is a reality. As we've heard, a 20 trillion is the estimate for what comes next. And I'd love to start from Andrea Conso. He's expert of financial market regulation, to understand more about it. Because we heard about MiCA pilot regime, although Arnaud was a bit doubtful around the efficacy of the pilot itself. So Europe is trying to provide itself, to equip itself with a single body of regulations. So what's the status quo and what are the next steps? As MiCA is very much close. Thank you so much for inviting me, and good afternoon, everyone. First of all, yes, I do agree that we're quite doubtful around pilot regime. It is a good regulation. We still need to understand the potentials. The good news is that we're coming very close to the end of a journey that started back in 2018-19, where Europe was making a very important choice, global-wise, when they decided to adopt a dedicated piece of regulation fully devoted to the crypto activities, let's say, market. A long study, a long survey started, and we're very much to the end of it now. We're about to accomplish that. And the framework regulation has been very nicely presented a moment ago. So let's say that it is still exists, the body of regulations that we have used so far, and there's new emerging rules which are kind of filling the gaps, those that we still observe as gaps, because they raise the issues for this market to really grow and evolve. Therefore, let's say the assumptions that you will come across, and they're really saying something. Well, this rule is there because no other similar rule exists. And MiCA will now complete the framework. And this is really interesting because it is kind of the last piece of the puzzle in a way. And there's kind of over expectations with respect to the potentials of MiCA. That is perhaps because of the financial market perspective, as MiCA will regulate everything that is non-financial market, anything that is non-financial instruments, anything that is basically different from an asset, which is fully regulated within the framework that we're familiar with. And therefore, we should maybe more tackle what has changed with respect to our traditional regulations, MiFID, for instance, as well as other regulations currently existing regulating the investment piece of it. So there's no room to really approach all the specificities, but I'd love to raise a few insights. Well, first of all, within this broad scenario, nice that we have a dedicated regulation to crypto assets market, but this implies a problem, taxonomy. So the very first exercise that we should do, and I see some people smiling because we've been talking through this for a while now. So the very first thing that we should do is try to understand this asset that can be tokenized the way we like. What is it and where does it sit? When we reply these answers, then everything becomes easier and more straightforward, because the EU lawmaker has decided to kind of identify some channels and either take one or the other when it comes to approach new pieces of regulations. So this is the very first milestones that we don't want to forget. So the bottom line is, what is it? Is it a financial instrument? Yes or no? Is it a product? Yes or no? Utility token? Well, utility token doesn't mean much, it should be more, let's say, heavily supported to be totally understood. Second step, once we understand what the piece of regulation is about, then we should tackle the harmonization. And again, these are all pieces of regulations which become pan-European. But as it is often the case when it comes to financial market, it is not true that we're all starting from the same departure point, because we're now experiencing a transition, and therefore there's a physiological issue, which is the arbitrage when it comes to regulation. So this kind of moment of transition, as we say, and in this kind of transitions, all countries are kind of doing different things. We do have a funny joke in Italian, because we're all starting from different rules and from different, let's say, positions. Of course, we will come to an harmonization sooner or later, but transition is not easy right now. We're talking about transition which may last between 18 to 24 months. And therefore, this is possibly leading to an imbalance amongst the different markets. And this, of course, will be very much managed by the supervisory authorities within each member state. And because at this point, there's no one finalized regulation in place. So let's say that the supervisory authorities will decide how to execute the existing rules, how to amend the existing ones, and it will be very much up to member state to decide upon. Last but not least, MiCA will help us manage transition, and possibly is speeding up the system as a whole. Recently, a public consultation was accomplished for MiCA to be executed. They all recognize this is a transition moment, and what everybody is saying now is anybody taking care of crypto activities nowadays, yes, they may consider this moment as a transition, but then between 27 and 30 of December will then finally come to an end. Of course, bearing in mind that we hope that the piece of regulation will be finally passed. So those individuals who will, I don't know, register to OAM, will equip themselves with their organizational structure as the regulation requires, well, they might still carry on operating until they get their approval, their authorization. If this is not happening, everything will just collapse. And basically, those individuals will have to return everything. I'm not saying that they can't start again, but they will have to start with traditional rules, submitting the request, asking for authorizations, and that authorization will take its time. And it might take 6-8 months, well, as it is usually the case, we still don't know, but more or less this is likely the time. One last thing. There is some kind of homogeneity within norms. These new provisions, and I'm considering MiCA, but also pilot regime could be considered now. Well, it is, of course, very much drawing inspiration from financial market discipline. Well, of course, it is a pilot regime which is fully devoted to financial instruments which are being tokenized. But MiCA, which will take care of non-financial instruments, it is still drawing inspiration from that very discipline. Because if you actually kind of fragment it, if you fragment MiCA, then you will see that it pretty much goes through the same topics, and also from a language standpoint, if you consider legacy MiFID, for instance, is being incorporated, and then the market abuse discipline as well as insider trading, and that is even being called the manipulation of crypto activities market. Now, it is funny that we want to apply this discipline to a non-financial instrument, but this is what the lawmaker has decided so far. So, drawing conclusions. These are all the things that I mentioned. Well, I do believe that this auditorium here, you're all familiar with the financial market, and you're probably familiar with what I'm saying. This very piece of regulation is not going to be that very innovative. It is just a mere evolution of the so-called right of financial market. We're just going to be call it differently, but in the end, the rules, the remarks, and the regulatory framework that the EU lawmaker is suggesting and wants us to adopt is very much a supervised intermediary. And now I will stop. If you take CASP and you see what they're saying with respect to what do you need to make a SIM, well, you can kind of you need, put the dots together or spot the differences. I mean, there are not so many differences. Clearly, the topics are different, but we're very much within the same context. And this is very much the broader picture. Thank you, Andrea. Well, the one piece of certainty here is that you lawyers, you'll have plenty of work to work with over the next few years. This is kind of certain. I'd like to leave the floor to Andrea Riva from Crédit Agricole to understand about this big interest around these very topics. And my question is, what is it that is really inviting such a business, consumer, and corporate banks to really venture on these topics, so digital assets, namely? Well, we've been on a very unique journey. What we were, let's say, pushed by, we were very much approaching because of a kind of a contamination. This is how I would call it, contamination. Back in 2020, we were opening the first one of 5 startup accelerators. We wanted to approach tech innovation to detect and spot some new trends. So back in 2020, there was kind of turmoil around Bitcoins. And if you look at Google Trend, there was very much a kind of a pinnacle back then around those topics. And when we opened this startup accelerator, the one related to blockchain, well, it was quite crowded. It was heavily attended. So we were curious about this, and we started from that. We were being contaminated by these young entrepreneurs. One of these young entrepreneurs is actually sitting here on this very stage today. So we decided to make that investment. We became part of the equity of that startup so that we could really understand more and better the potential of that technology. And as you can remember, back then, regulators, they were trying to tell intermediaries, to keep separate crypto versus blockchain. So Bitcoin, we won't touch it. It's best not to get dirty hands for the time being. And let's try to understand whether the blockchain technology really has some transformative potentialities. And this is what we really started from. And then thanks to our connections with startup, we were kind of going through 3 different stages. First one, there was a moment of training, of course, training, education, almost a year running workshops in-house, to kind of disseminate the knowledge of that very technology. When we were all up to speed on knowledge, then we moved to the proof of concept. Well, initially, it was very much around tables. We were also holding one with Bank of Italy, and then the year before, one with 𝙗𝙧𝙧𝙧𝙧, so on how to tokenize financial objects. And then we came to the third stage of it, which was the tech-based one. And then we were literally executing a tokenization platform. We're now testing parallel. We weren't actually able today, as I speak, we can actually deliver a token starting from a mini bond equity, from a real asset, so to speak. Of course, the framework is still missing, regulatory framework is still missing, but we're very much in a good position in terms of tokenizing assets. What we see from an enterprise, from company standpoint, we see the possibility to access brand new channels for funding. And this is how we've interpreted this technology. So this is something that allows us to tell our corporate customers that they may have different sources, that they may look at. And this is something that we've always been very much engage with. So the goal is to have a more liquid market, accessible market, and literally this technology might provide a good answer to these emerging questions. And then, of course, there's a huge potential for intermediaries to play new roles. Custodians, to mention one. So brand new business opportunities and brand new roles as well for intermediaries. Investor side, well, it is still premature to say. Tokens are there, but they're still pilot. We're still testing. And what I foresee within the next few months, probably a very big acceleration on this testing. So hopefully the lawmaker will be as fast, providing answers with some clear frameworks. And therefore, this is the acceleration that I expect. Opportunities for both intermediaries as well as investors are more out there. Well, thank you. And talking about investors, I'd love to leave the floor to Antonio Di Feo and Italian branch of Indosuez Wealth, Crédit Agricole. So what is the perception of investors with respect to this new era, new instruments, and what are the opportunities for private banking and wealth management?
Well, let me tell you that the market is now paying attention onto the evolution and developments of digital assets, of course, and in particular in terms of private customers. So from this point of view, first and foremost, we have to consider the opportunities offered on the market in terms of banks, but also for customers. In the past, we used, to just talk about the key advantages in using digital assets, and again, in terms of streamlining investment processes, considering the entire scope, and including the opportunity to optimize processes, compliance, simplify compliance systems based on how we use a customer's data inside blockchain. Now, on the customer side, there's plenty of focus now, especially in the recent months, and basically this depends on 3, maybe 4 key factors. Factor number 1, the performance of Bitcoin. So it goes without saying, it has raised a significant interest. So even if digital assets are not just, this kind of currency. The second point is the regulatory framework. We have optimized, once again, the framework in Italy, but also in Europe. And once again, this shows, if you will, even more stability of the assets. So again, on the one side, this means we know how to manage, we know how to invest, and at the same time, we know that we can now guarantee efficiency and effectiveness of investments in the private system, but also in the public one. The third pillar is the availability of technologies today. And Lorenzo knows very well what I'm speaking about, because we know that the experimentation with the Crédit Agricole Italia is one such example, just like the offering that Laurent talked about concerning custody solutions and the tokenization solutions from CACEIS. So the availability of technology, but also the possibility to leverage technology is another key point. Last but not least, as Arnaud said before, it is the approval from the American SEC of 11 ETFs. It has generated another effect, another message. And the message is, yes, we can invest in basically traditional instruments, but the underlying system is digital assets, just like B or Bitcoin. So these 4 factors have raised interest for our customers, with big advantages concerning the diversification of the portfolio. As we said before, digital assets are new assets, so this means you can really diversify your portfolio. But this is also in compliance, if you will, with our own private banking policies in terms of, personalizing our portfolios for our customers. So basically, we want to invest in traditional assets and digital assets, so we offer a holistic vision. And this means that customers have the right visibility, monitoring, control, and of course, we check and control risks and performances. So these are the new features of the future investments. Now, there's another very important point in my personal opinion, which is the following. For example, if you consider the market in general, I just would like to share with you the big numbers. Today in Italy, we have around 1.5 billion euros worth of investments, basically cryptocurrencies, because, I mean, tokenization is just a small part, of which onto this market we have 700,000 customers. Abroad, the situation is slightly different. Now, what you need is two key factors. First of all, you have to have the right regulatory framework. For example, just think of Switzerland or UK, Hong Kong, and Singapore. Now, the regulation, including France, sorry. So, once again, the regulations are a further boost, if you will, in terms of willingness to invest. Now, the second major topic, and this is to highlight, I mean, the private customers. In Switzerland, 50% of private customers' portfolios already contain digital assets. Well, most of this is cryptocurrencies. So once again, if you have this kind of structure, you know, in terms of regulations on the market, well, this is really important, and those markets work very well. So we also have to invest on training. Why training? Why education? Well, quite often we keep talking about financial education. In this case, well, even more so, we have to invest in training. So in terms of Indos US, we have launched a specific educational program for our bankers. And, you know, we do this because we want to have a general view on the market. We need to understand what we can do, where it is possible to do something, together with specific education cascading all the way down to end users. So again, this is our own pathway, one of the avenues we are exploring. In terms of solutions, what do we see today? Well, step number one is the opportunity to use and to offer customers a custody service. So once again, this is the right context in which I'd like to talk about custody. So we're working with CACEIS on a group level because we want to get to a solution, and this means that we would like to make sure our customers in the future can count on this custody service, which is of course the first step. The second step is tokenization. We keep talking about this with Andrea and Lorenzo because, you know, we are distributors, so we want to know what we can do about this. Of course, we will be helped by ongoing technology, and either directly or indirectly, so thanks to fintechs, we can do this. The second pillar I mentioned is education. So the general scope, if you will, is very clear. And as Andrea said before, of course, we will be shifting into a more and more advanced tokenization. So once again, 20 trillion euros, this is what we forecast for 2030. So as private managers, we have to be ready to take up the challenges of our customers. A very final question. You say you have a European view. What about Italy? Well, we are lagging behind in terms of knowledge, and again, we have to bridge the gap. But again, the regulatory framework is fundamental, together with the skills that we are developing right now. These are the two key elements, so the pathway, the avenue is very clear. Now, Lorenzo Rigatti from Block Invest, you've been mentioned more than once. What about tokenization? This is something you do every single day, I guess. So from the technological point of view, we have an Italian company which is really cutting edge, so a leading company. What are the opportunities from this point of view in terms of tokenization? What are the advantages that tokenization can offer? Of course, I'm talking about financial instruments. And as far as you can tell, what are the main areas where experimentation is going on? Now, let me follow up the previous speech. Every single asset is a crypto asset. Now, from the legal point of view, there may be many differences, but for blockchain, every single asset is a crypto asset. So once again, people complained a lot about Bitcoin in Italy. Anyway, now we have something like plus 318% on an asset on a yearly basis. This is absolutely unprecedented. So what we are seeing today, based on non-Italian experiences. Well, I'm talking about Luxembourg, because you know that the regulatory framework was much more open, if you will. So also in Italy, as I said before, we are working hard. The position is quite good, and people are a little bit, too pessimistic. I mean, we see many intermediaries or brokers. They are, doing education. They are in the pre-production phase. So the knowledge base is becoming bigger and bigger. In terms of use cases, well, this is what we can see now on the market. Basically, we have two key topics. We have the CMs, so the capital markets, so DCMs, but also equities, and knocking at the door. And then we have the funds universe, which is very interesting for many different reasons, by the way. First of all, you can have many different products. So personally, I really like, the Web3 funds that we mentioned before. So the so-called tokenized assets. I mean, funds purchasing crypto assets. This is very interesting, but we'll also work in order to tokenize shares or stakes of funds. Anyway, these are the main use cases. We also have a long list of advantages, and by the way, they heavily depend on the use case. It also depends on the person, so the companies launching the tokenization system, because, I mean, distributors have some advantages, asset managers have other advantages, and hopefully also investors or customers will have advantages, of course. Now, as the previous speaker said, the technology can now do many, many things. So smart contracts that may create new business systems. Now, blockchain is much better than what people think of. Now we have more and more details, so we can really work, hands-on, because we're very lucky. We work with many, many different companies and brokers. Well, the system now is so powerful that it is now questioning the entire, underlying processes. Now, creating tokens for something is relatively easy. Okay, so let's say it's really easy. What we are doing, because we found plenty of fertile ground also in Italy, we want to tokenize the entire process, not just the product. So we would like to have, the entire value chain. So we have the as-is process, then we have a to-be process. This is what we are working on. And again, this is our capital market universe, but also funds universe. So on both sides, we see the same behaviors. Again, the potential is so big. If you really, really want to take advantage of technology, well, first of all, you have to have, a cash range. With no cash, there's a big problem, because there would be a misalignment between different regulations, and this doesn't help us measure the technology. I mean, T+4, you strive to T+2, and then you have T+0, with cash lag. Anyway, we have to change or refresh the processes. We have to ask questions. We may want to give a wallet to customers. This is not easy. Not all customers want to do this. We have to calculate the different things with different hours. I mean, technology is really, really very helpful. So today we can redesign basically from scratch the, long established habits that people have today on those markets. So again, it will take time. Well, so much so that we have mentioned very famous projects. Of course, so when BlackRock does something, people know what they do. I mean, for Europe, this is the first monetary fund from Luxembourg, from HSBC. So why don't they do this directly? They do this on other platforms. I mean, BlackRock, doesn't have to ask to securitize tokenization platforms. They don't need to host a fund. They do this because they want to be, unlocked or free from the usual processes. So basically what they want is to have a native Web3 operator, because it is not linked to procedures and, logical systems that would compel me to have a 5-year-long go-to-market strategy. Once again, HSBC is doing this with the help of another UK platform. So once again, this is great food for thought. And anyway, we talked about MiCA and then the new regime. What we want to implement now in Italy, and by the way, we are so proud of working here. Our focus is on the law degree on fintech. Now, every asset is a crypto asset, but when we talk about tokenized financial instruments, I mean, there's a very bad habit also from big operators. So all these security tokens are treated in the same way. But if you ask questions to those working in the funds universe and capital markets universe, of course, rules are different and behaviors are different. We've been helped by brokers, by the regulators, especially in the two projects that we put in the call for proposal with the Bank of Italy, so as to redesign tokenization standards. Now, they do talk to each other, yes, but they are vertical on every single use case. So we need to do some adjustment. You know, technology is not the business. And, you know, as we said before, we are lagging behind a little bit, but technology has to be a helping hand to the business, not vice versa. And considering the crypto asset context, especially in terms of tokenized securities, the system has to comply with the law. For example, smart contracts have to contain plenty of conditions. This means I can be complying with our, you know, fintech DL, as we say in Italy, or the so-called pilot regime in Europe, which we are not using, by the way. But this is what we need to really take advantage of all the advantages of this technology. Thank you so much. I mean, plenty of food for thought. We may want to talk about this for the rest of the afternoon, because it is so interesting. But once again, time is an enemy today. So the floor goes now to Laurent MAJCHRZAK from CACEIS. Laurent MAJCHRZAK, CACEIS, we know, is the depositary bank from the Crédit Agricole Group. And what are you doing? Are you embracing this new universe? And what is the model that we mentioned before, by the way? So what is the model that you are offering into this perspective?
To congratulate you for the pronunciation of my difficult name, so that's the first achievement. And to answer your question, yes. First of all, before explaining the model, we have to make a statement that this is a very boiling and inspiring transition that is happening right now. But it is also important to notice that the success, beyond the fact that some people have the tendency to mix blockchain and Bitcoin and things like that, is that it was primarily a retail investment market. And now we are facing a situation where our customers are mainly corporates, institutionals, mutual funds, pension funds, and they're starting from a completely different mindset. If you talk to a kid of 15 years old, what he wants today, first he wants to open an account via an iPhone, subscribe in 2 minutes after opening an account in the same period of time, and buy and sell and get these proceeds if God accepts it. Honestly, for talking about our customers, they are completely different culture. They want to be, because they're liable for the safekeeping also of the assets, they need a trusted partner. And you were right by saying that MiCA, in a sense, is calling for licensed intermediaries, which is seems to be not so. It was not the initial intention of blockchain, because this intermediation was at the core, right? But now we see a shift, because now people understand that in order to give access to their customers to that new asset class, because it is definitely considered as a new asset class, needs to also leverage on reliable solutions. And that's where CACEIS is positioning its services on the safekeeping and custody of assets. We can explain into more details, but Arnaud already introduced that topic. And also on the distribution of funds, which are the two parts of the DNA of the bank. Facilitating to provide and leveraging on the culture of risk management, the strength of the technology and the risk management process we have in order to make sure that the private keys remain where they should stand and only give access to the customers and not some other parties. And that's what we propose to the market today. We're live, we have the infrastructure, we're onboarding the first customers, and yes, it's important for us to be MiCA compliant ASAP. We were one of the first banks of our size in Europe, not in the world, and there were also some competitors such as Bank of New York and Fidelity in the US who have been moving in this direction much before us. But we are one of the biggest banks today, and will be joined by others, of course, with MiCA, having a step into this market, proposing strong solution in order to safekeep in a different manner than FTX the assets of our customers whenever we want to have access to tokenized financial assets and crypto assets. So that's the positioning of CACEIS today for the custody part. And on the distribution part, we've been distributing billions of fund units around the world. We are connected to all the different distribution channels. I was here last year to talk about distribution as a whole. And we just need to open and give access to our customers to that new channel. And we are convinced today, because it's not clear at the moment, and somebody was talking about this, is the market calling for that solution right now? And I'm talking beyond the Italian market, which is slightly particular, and I know that the distributors, they have a big part to play in that role, but globally, is the distribution world calling for that solution? We are definitely looking for cost savings, by far, efficiency, by far, transparency, but are we equipped? We need to test. And the philosophy of CACEIS today is to say that any customer using CACEIS today for the distribution services, and I must be precise, when we talk at in-house about distribution, we're not distributing anything. We're just providing solutions, technical solutions. Distributor doing it very much better than we do, and we don't want to enter that business. We're agnostic to any distributor. We just give the infrastructure. We have a new technology that we put at our disposal of our clients. And our strategy today is clear. We give them the opportunity to test and to see how their investor base react. Telling you today that we have a beginning of a sense of what it will be, a big success or a deep failure, we don't know. But at least we are ready to give them the opportunity to test. And maybe the experience of one customer will be different from the other customer, but we are definitely going in this direction because that's the sense of history. And that's for the demand. But we need to educate. There was like a word pronounced, which is very important. We need to educate in our own organizations. We also need to educate the market, our customers, and see where this will lead us. And we are well placed to do so. And happy to do this. And I must insist on that, because we have several entities of our group represented today. Crédit Agricole, a big and strong banking group in Europe, but with very strict rules as well. And I can tell you that we are invited, in a way, to do so in a very secured environment, which leads us to go step by step, but with a strong resolution to be very, very ready to be one of the first MiCA licensed entity and CASP, and proud to be it for the benefit of our customers.
Grazie Laurent. Concludo.
Thank you, Laurent. Thank you so much also for touch basing on the need of education, which has been repeated many times, because it will be crucial for the market to really evolve effectively. So amongst the several opportunities out there, as Arnaud Misset said when it started today, we were very much faced with something that is a reality already. So we have to be well equipped to face with it as operators, as well as savers, investors, and as a whole of the ecosystem. So I'd love to thank all the attendees to this roundtable. Thank you so much for being with us this afternoon, and let's see how things will unfold and what opportunities will be out there for us. Thank you.